You say honor, I say obligation. We're just mixing words here. It's not that big a deal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my business is technically words, and I do detect that one of them seems to be voluntary, the other more forced, imposed.
Yeah.
Other synonyms.
I would just tell you, don't get hung up on words. As a doctor of humane letters, I don't. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbon doesn't care about you like I do. So I'm joined by our great friend, the host of the podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, Mr. Pablo Torre. And we begin today with North Carolina making it official, Pablo, and hiring Bill Belichick to a 5-year, $50 million contract. North Carolina has never been a football power. So, Pablo, what do you think success would look like with Belichick there? And do you think Belichick took this job because nobody in the NFL seemed to want him?
Yeah. To the latter question, first and foremost, yup. This is one of those situations, Tony, where desperation is a particularly persuasive aphrodisiac. Let's be clear about Bill Belichick. He wanted back in on the NFL, was apparently holding Zoom calls during this season with his assistant coaches, former assistant coaches. They were game planning, hoping for a spot. He didn't get a nibble. He didn't get a bite. And so when you combine that with North Carolina, which brings us to the first question you asked, what's a standard of success for a program that is also quite desperate for something resembling football relevancy? Of course, they're a basketball school. Of course, they hadn't won an ACC title since, and this is a character Belichick is familiar with, Lawrence Taylor was playing in 1980 for the Tar Heels. I think it's probably an ACC title. I would say that. That feels like success for a guy with all of this hype and none of the resume in college particularly.
Yeah, I want to talk about success in the near term because when you're Belichick's age or my age, a lot older than Belichick, you only talk about the near term. And I would say the near term success would be 10 wins, a shot at the ACC title, which gives you a shot at the college playoff. Now, a good season for North Carolina is 7. A great season is 8. So 10 wins may be too high a number that I'm setting. But this is Bill Belichick, you know, and they've already started to call him Chapel Bill, which I think is a fabulous nickname, Chapel Bill. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think that all those North Carolina high school players who went across the state line to go play at Clemson, I think they're all going to play at North Carolina. I think that transfer portal people are going to line up as if Belichick is giving away free food. And I think that coaches in that area are going to say, go play for Belichick. Why? Because he can get you to the NFL. Bill Belichick's immediate appeal is exactly the same as Deion Sanders, right? I've been to the NFL. I've won in the NFL. I can get you to the NFL. And I think he's going to double down with that by hiring people like Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia and Charlie Weiss. And he's going to try to recreate that whole thing with New England. And I think it's exciting. I never thought I'd use that word. I think it's very exciting.
I love this story so deeply because on the personal level, it is theatrical, it is Shakespearean almost, giant egos brought low, trying to recapture glory. But the Deion of it, you know, I don't think he's Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders, Tony, has demonstrated understanding because maybe it's just the way he himself was as a player for the transactionality of modern college football in all of its excess, in all of the ways, by the way, that scared away Bill Belichick's friend, Nick Saban. Nick Saban got out of the business the same day Bill Belichick left the NFL. And Saban said it was because he didn't want to recruit 24/7, 365 free agency.
There's a difference, though, Pablo. There's a difference here.
What?
I mean, don't underestimate Belichick because he comes in armed with all of that. He comes in with a general manager. He comes in with a sense that it is indeed transactional and he's ready for it. I don't know why he went to North Carolina. I would like to think, the romantic in me would like to think it's because his dad coached there and he always sort of wanted to do college, but he did so well in the pros, there was no reason to do it. But to go back to the first point that you made, I don't think there's a nibble at all among owners in the NFL because they're stupid, most of them. They're afraid of his power grab. They're afraid of his attitude and what they're, you know, ask Atlanta. How are the Atlanta Falcons doing turning their back on him? How's their season going?
Right. Okay, so with the NFL part of it, I think they are stupid insofar as Bill Belichick remains the greatest defensive mind in the history of the sport.
Yes.
I believe he is still that now. That is not degraded. The question, though, and the skepticism I have, and why I am more pessimistic about this, is because what the NFL people have known is this is a man who has been historically and infamously unwilling to evolve when it comes to how he deals with personnel. And that, Tony, that part of how you deal with the players, where the players, in a sense, are kind of your boss at the college level in this era of college football, I don't think Bill Belichick has demonstrated the evidence that makes me bullish on him inside of a living room, let alone him helping manage a cap sheet for teenagers. That, to me, is just a different game in a very real way.
That's the excitement. That's the excitement. The unknown. That's the excitement.
Well, let's move on to Thursday Night Football, where there are Cardinals also in the mix. So, Tony, do you see tonight's contest as a playoff game?
It's a playoff game. I mean, what, in the sense that if the 49ers lose, they go to 6-8 and they're probably out of it, and it would mean they've lost twice to the Rams this year. If the Rams lose, they're 7-7. That's not disqualifying. Seattle plays, I believe, Green Bay this week. They could lose that game. They could be 8-6. What I'm saying is I don't believe for a second that this division is going to be decided this week or next week either. I see this game as an opportunity to get rich on the over. Both of these teams killed it last week. The Rams scored 44 last week. The 49ers scored 38. That's 82. I believe the over was quoted to me today at 48.5. And these are bad defensive teams. Like the Rams are 24th in points allowed. The 49ers are 21st in points allowed. Do I think it'll get to 82? No, but it could get to 52, and then we'd all get a piece of that. That would be fun.
Yeah, it's a playoff game in the sense that it reminds me of the NFL writ large, which is here are two deeply flawed teams that on any given week can look like a contender and also are not to be trusted in general. That's most of the league outside of maybe Kansas City, and even then, of course, the luck factor makes them untrustworthy, and maybe Detroit. But in the NFC West, you have this division that is so deeply mired in mediocrity that it is exciting because it feels like a coin flip. And when you mention the Rams in particular, that defense is basically a coin flip. They're as likely to give up 40+ as they are to give up fewer than 20. It's just a really schizophrenic scenario. And so when you combine that with the Niners and Brock Purdy, who looked tremendous last week, even though he's missing all of these weapons, his backfield is basically a mash unit, and the defense is also ailing. Yeah, to me, it's playoff-like insofar as there are stakes, and I don't want to bet on who wins. I do like your recommendation for taking the over, though.
I would just say that watching last week, when you see Stafford with Nakua, with Cooper Kupp, you just go, wow. Who's going to stop them?
Yep, they're back.
They just really look good. All right, let's move on. Now we return to the Emirates Cup, which continues to go on and on. Last night's quarterfinals saw Houston beat Golden State on a foul call that Steve Kerr disputed at length after the game. And Atlanta beat the Knicks soundly in Madison Square Garden for their 7th victory in their last 8 starts. So, Pablo, which result to you is more significant?
Yeah, a bit of the through line in this A block has been an appreciation of theater. And so I'm going Trae Young. Tony, I feel like this season early on, as much as the NBA Emirates Cup is trying to gin up stakes, Trae Young in Madison Square Garden, standing over the logo, clearly inspired by college football, clearly inspired by flag planting at midfield, throwing some dice and getting everybody mad at him. I enjoy that as much as I might resent in my bones as a New Yorker the act. I think it's great that Trae Young does this. I think that game in particular against the Knicks team, of course, with the #1 offense, with the real team this year, all of the new players, all of that, Karl Anthony Towns and so forth, Trae Young being relevant in this specific contest and context, that means something to me.
Yeah. So I said I didn't particularly care for this tournament yesterday, and Wilbon told me I was wrong, and I had to care because the ratings were up, when in fact the ratings aren't up. They're down. They're down 10%, and the NBA, the broadcasts are down like 28%. But I'll leave that aside because Wilbon isn't here.
Sure.
I don't want to stick that on you. I would agree with you that the more significant win was Atlanta's win. I looked at Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and I thought they're no good. So I didn't see this coming. They have beaten the Knicks. They've beaten the Bucks. They've beaten the Celtics. They've beaten the Cavaliers. So I guess Quinn Snyder ought to get some credit some credit for that. But if you don't mind, I want to concentrate on Steve Kerr, who I like and respect a lot. Steve Kerr is a 4-time champion as a coach, and he coached the Olympic gold medal team in Paris. You know, I mean, he's not just some guy. And he got very upset at this call yesterday. I'll try and get out in 20 seconds on this. It's a 1-point game. There's 3 seconds left. The ball is loose on the floor, right? Houston dives, Golden State dives, and they call a shooting foul. It's 25 feet from the closest basket. You don't call a shooting foul. You call jump. That's what you do. And Steve Kerr said, this is unfair. It's unreasonable. The game shouldn't have ended on something like that. And I find myself completely agreeing with him. Let's take a break. Coming up, will players want to play for Bill Belichick? We're going to ask Booger McFarland.
And we'll also ask him what intrigues him most about this weekend's big NFL matchups.
You know, Kerr doesn't yell. It's like he wants to yell but knows he shouldn't yell. So he just simmers inside. He simmers.
Yeah. Also, that game was so physical the entire time. I'm with the simmering anger. I don't want to see it decided.
Yeah.
4-point swing. That sequence was
Jump
crazy.
it up.
A 5-point.
You jump it up. Let's dig back into the NFL with our great friend ESPN NFL and college football analyst Booger McFarland. And this is how pro and college meets, because you cannot start with anything other than Bill Belichick. That's the news of the day. It's the news of yesterday, today, tomorrow, and ongoing. Let's start with this. How are things different? You played college football, you played pro football. How are things different between coaching in the NFL and coaching in college?
And so, Tony, here's the biggest difference. In pro football, you choose the players. In college football, the players choose you. And everybody has been singing the praises of Bill Belichick, and he's earned the benefit of the doubt. Anytime you're a 6-time head coaching Super Bowl champion, 2 more as an assistant, he gets to get the benefit of the doubt. But here's what I'll say. He's got to prove to me that he can relate to the modern-day athlete. I got a 17-year-old daughter, Tony. I'm 46 years old. I'll be 47 next week. It's difficult sometimes for me to relate to her. Now imagine a 72-year-old man trying to relate to these 18-year-old kids. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm just saying he needs to prove to me that he can relate to the modern-day athlete. So that is the biggest difference. Football is football. Bill Belichick knows more football than any of us will ever learn in our lifetime. I'm not concerned about the X's and O's. I'm concerned, can a 72-year-old guy relate to an 18 to 22-year-old? Because the players have to choose Belichick. This is not the NFL where you get to choose the players.
So happy early birthday, first off, Booger.
Thank you.
But if you're going to go back in time, to young Booger McFarland, a star recruit, would you have wanted to play for Bill Belichick? Would you choose him?
It depends on how much money Belichick got, baby. This is a new day and age, Pablo. It's about cash right now. Cash is king. All jokes aside, I was a guy who wanted to be a student athlete. Yeah, football was cool. I never thought about the NFL until my junior year of college. I never thought that dream was a possibility. Nobody in my family had ever graduated. And so I was trying to figure out where I could go, where I could play, but where I also could get a scholarship and get a degree and be academically successful. So if Bill Belichick could have provided that for me, and it wasn't in a place that had cold weather, because you know Boog don't do cold weather, and there was a possibility that I could have played for Coach Belichick, because instantaneously, when he walks in the room, he gets credibility because he is a larger-than-life figure in this sport known as...
3 big games in the NFL, Bills at Lions, Steelers at Eagles, and of course Packers at Seahawks. Which one of those is intriguing you in the present tense?
It's got to be Steelers at Eagles, right? Think about everything that's going on in Philadelphia. The coach and the coach is kind of antagonizing the fans early in the season. The quarterback and the receiver are going back and forth in the media. Meanwhile, they're a good football team. They got all these issues, and they're a good football team. And here comes poor old Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. All he's going to do is not have a losing record. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are a good football team. Russell Wilson has found the fountain of youth as far as his play. They're outstanding. And so I just want to see, can Philadelphia get past their issue? A lot of issues for a team that's really good up there in Philadelphia this week. Here come the Steelers, a really good football team. They understand who they are. Physical on offense, physical on defense. That, to me, should be a great game because Mike Tomlin, we know what type of coaching expertise he has. Can Nick Sirianni match that? I can't wait to watch it, Pablo.
Very interesting that you did not pick Buffalo and Detroit. I would have thought you'd pick Buffalo and Detroit, but I appreciate your answer, and we will get you out of here on this. Tonight, it's the Rams and the 49ers. They put up big numbers last week. Each of these teams put up a lot of points. What are you going to be watching for tonight?
San Francisco has beaten the Rams 7 out of the last 10 times, Tony, and they've done it the same way. They've been the more physical team. They line up and hit the Rams in the mouth. And dare I say, they almost Debo the Rams, if I want to steal a line or a phrase from a movie, because they kind of punked the Rams a little bit. And that's kind of been the history. So can San Francisco do that again? No McCaffrey, no Mason. They're going to line up with Isaac Guerrero. Nobody knows his name hardly, but they're going to run the same plays. They're going to be physical and run the football. Can L.A. handle that physicality? And then on the other side, Matthew Stafford may have played the best game of football that I've seen a quarterback play last Sunday against the Bills. He was absolutely outstanding. He's going to have to be that again in order for the Rams to compete, Tony.
Booger, pleasure. I know you're not in a golf shirt tonight, and there's a reason for that, but it is a pleasure to see you anyway. Thank you.
Tony, the pleasure is always mine. I look forward to seeing everyone tonight on ESPN, the College Football Awards. We're going to hand out all the major awards aside from the Heisman. So tune in tonight, myself, Kevin Nagande, Jen Latta, and Andre Ware.
And make sure you're done by midnight so you can get that suit back and get a break on the rental. Let's move on from this. Appreciate that. I don't have to read the prompter. Booger did the whole thing. Let's take one last break. Still to come, West Virginia turns back to a coach who left it 17 years ago.
And were the Yankees right to not offer Juan Soto a suite?
Yeah, I read about that he wanted a suite, then the Mets gave him a suite. You know, I mean, for $765 million, you can afford to buy a suite. Happy time, people. Happy 92nd birthday, Bob Pettit. History lesson, kids. In the days before Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain transformed the NBA, two of the great stars were George Mikan and Bob Pettit. Pettit was a 6'9" forward for the St. Louis Hawks. From 1956 to 1969, the Celtics with Russell won 11 championships in 13 years. The only people to beat them were Pettit in 1958 and Chamberlain in 1967. Pettit's St. Louis Hawks also featured Cliff Hagan and Ed McCauley. For his 11-year NBA career, Pettit averaged 26.4 points and 16.2 rebounds per game. And he was an 11-time All-Star, a 2-time league scoring champ, and a 2-time league MVP. And that is why Bob Pettit's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, as much as I want to sort of laugh at the old footage and the fact that who did he really play against, the guy dominated to a degree. And by the way, George Mikan having a drill named after him, still relevant today. That makes me consider that class, thanks to your history class, in a pretty good light. Yeah.
Happy anniversary, LeBron James. On this day 22 years ago, 17-year-old LeBron made his national TV debut leading St. Vincent St. Mary High School to a 65-45 victory over Oak Hill Academy, then the #1 high school team. 10 months before, as a junior, LeBron beat Oak Hill as well, this time defeating Carmelo Anthony, who was a senior there. 20 years after LeBron's TV game debut, his son Bronny and his Sierra Canyon team from California defeated Christ the King from New York and Carmelo's son Cayenne in a nationally televised game. Cayenne is still in high school on Long Island, has committed to Syracuse like his dad, and Bronny is under contract to the Lakers.
Yeah, I've made peace with the fact that the most successful school when it comes to producing NBA players is the university of all of the sons of former NBA players. These two happen to be particular specimens, and I'm unsurprised to hear that this is exactly the trajectory that they are following.
Happy trails to Jacksonville State for Rich Rod. West Virginia announced this morning that Rich Rodriguez will return as head coach of the Mountaineers, 17 years after he left to coach Michigan. As you may remember, that did not go well. Rodriguez later coached Arizona before leading Jacksonville State to consecutive 9-4 years and this season's Conference USA title. Rodriguez was once the hottest coach in the country, even turning down Alabama, who ended up hiring some Tuscaloosa News, quote, "I was at an Alabama practice years later and I said, 'Where's my statue? I'm partly responsible for it.' They ended up with the best college coach ever, and it's not even close," unquote.
Yeah, I like that logic. Brian Russell somewhere is like, I deserve a statue too. What about me?
Big finish real quickly, Pablo. John Heyman reports the Yankees refused to offer a suite to Juan Soto. Right call?
No, you offered $760, give him the suite. The PGA Tour is bringing back the skins game for the first time since '08. Have you missed it?
No, but I'm sure it'll be good, and I'm sure Rory will be in it, and Scheffler will be in it. Ohio State AD Rich Bjork told the Fan in Columbus he absolutely expects Ryan Day to coach Ohio State next season. Do you agree with that?
He's lost to Michigan like 4 straight times. Sorry, Ross Bjork, no thanks. Women's college hoops tonight, second-ranked UConn at number 8 Notre Dame. Who you got?
So my heart says UConn, my head says Notre Dame in this one. Last one, Colorado's Travis Hunter is the AP's College Football Player of the Year. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely the guy. Two-way player, yes. Who else is doing that? He's the guy.
Well,
He's
only
the player.
Shohei Ohtani is a two-way player. So, yeah.
That's right.
You know, it's
big
fun
deal
now.
for him, too.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time, and I am Tony Cornheiser.
And I'm Pablo Torre. Thank you for watching. Pablo Torre Finds Out is the show I host. But for now, your Sports Center.
Oh, you left too much time.
But LA plays again Sunday against Memphis, so he'd have 8 days off if he's out tomorrow. The Lakers started the season 10-4, but have gone 3-7 since. Certainly they could use LeBron in the fold. We now bring in the man who broke the story, along with Lakers reporter Dave McMenamin, our senior NBA insider Shams Charania. So Shams, what more can you share with us about LeBron's status moving forward?
This just came in. The Lakers listed LeBron James as out for tomorrow night's game against the Minnesota Timberwolves with foot soreness. So this means it's not personal reasons, it's that foot. And this is something where it doesn't seem to me that there's anything alarming here. But the Lakers looking at the schedule because of the NBA Cup and taking a really prudent and smart approach because like you just said, Al, 8 days in between games if he does make his return on Sunday. And this is someone that's going to be 40 at the end of the month in his 22nd season, tied for the league record. And he's also coming off an Olympic run in the offseason. So LeBron James has obviously had the last couple weeks have been trying at different points, shooting the basketball at points. He even admitted the Lakers were going through some offensive struggles. He's picked it up the last week or so, but right now, these 8 days should allow him an opportunity to recharge and recalibrate.
Yeah, I love that. Offensive struggles, right? But he's still averaging 23 points per game, which, yes, the haters will say is the lowest since his rookie campaign, but pretty good by anybody else's standards, especially at 40 years old. Let's talk about another seasoned vet, if you will. I know, Shams, that you've reported that the Heat are open to dealing star forward Jimmy Butler. What more have you learned regarding his future?
This is something that's going to be fluid. We're going to continue to monitor this ahead of the February NBA trade deadline. And so the Heat are keeping their lines of communications open with teams listening on offers potentially, because this team over the last couple of years, they've been in the play-in race, middle of the pack. So when you're in that position, you have to listen to what's out there. And for Jimmy Butler, he has a $49 million contract this year, a $52 million player option for next season. And that gives him an amount of leverage. And so as he looks into the marketplace, it's been communicated that he would be open to destinations like the two of the Texas teams, the Mavericks and the Rockets, as well as the Warriors and the Phoenix Suns. We'll have to stay very close to this.
Yeah, so more leverage for him is the fact that since he joined the Heat, he's averaging 4 more points per game in the postseason than in the regular season. Certainly sounds like one of those contenders, could use those kind of buckets on their team. If we get any news on the story, of course, Shams is going to bring it to us right here on SportsCenter, so he's standing by. Thank you, Shams. More on a developing story. High-profile athletes are increasingly the target of burglars when they're playing out of town. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce were both robbed, as well as NBA players Bobby Portis and Michael Conley. The latest? Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, whose home was broken into during Monday night's game. The FBI has connected the crimes to sophisticated theft groups, and leagues have urged players to take precautions. Burrow speaking today about what specifically was taken from him.
I'll start out by saying something before any questions today. So obviously, everybody has heard what has happened. I feel like my privacy has been violated in more ways than one, and way more is already out there than I would want out there and that I care to share. So that's all I got to say about that.
Those comments coming yesterday from Joe. Senior NFL insider Adam Schefter joins us now with more. Schefter, what's the NFL trying to do to curb some of these burglaries?
Well, the NFL warns players that events like these could happen, and the NFL urges players to take security measures. And you're seeing more and more as press conferences are unfolding this week. Tua Tagovailoa in Miami talking about putting security at his house during games, armed security. Aaron Rodgers putting in extra cameras at his house. Clearly, the message has spread, and we've seen what can occur and has occurred this year with Patrick Mahomes, with Travis Kelce, with Joe Burrow being the target of these attacks when they are playing games and known to be away from home. It is now up to the players, despite what the league says, about being as vigilant as ever and finding security to make sure that events like these stop. You could see how emotional and bothered and upset and hurt Joe Burrow was in the press conference that he delivered, and he had every right to be. It's very troubling what's going on across the country right now.
It really is. The idea of just not sharing too much on social media about where you are does not apply here. Literally everyone in the world knows their schedule and where they will be. Let's move to on the field. We've got a Falcons team, Shefty, that's lost 4 straight games in which quarterback Kirk Cousins has 8 picks and 0 touchdowns. What's head coach Raheem Morris saying about a possible quarterback change to the rookie they just drafted in Michael Penix Jr.?
They continue to stand behind Kirk Cousins. And we talked about this last week. We said as long as they don't win, as long as Kirk Cousins doesn't throw touchdowns, and as long as he does throw interceptions, this is a topic that's going to come up on a regular basis now. The Falcons at one point were in first place. They were 6-3. All that has slipped away. Kirk Cousins has struggled, and we have, as you mentioned, the 8th overall pick in the draft sitting on the bench. But the Falcons have been steadfast in the idea that they are sticking with their quarterback. They are sticking with the man that they gave $100 million in guaranteed money to last offseason. They have a plan for Penix, but the plan is not for right now. So we'll continue to lean on what they're saying, give them the benefit of the doubt. But if these struggles continue, you're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about this on a very regular basis.
Exactly, because they also had a plan for the postseason, but now they're a game back of the Bucs for the NFC South after essentially